Imagine standing in front of a buffet. The food looks delicious, but every time you reach for a plate, someone replaces the feast with a single breadcrumb. You're hungry, you're patient, and you think, maybe if I wait a little longer, I'll finally get the meal I deserve. That's breadcrumbing. And if you've ever tolerated it from a woman, you've likely confused emotional starvation for connection. Breadcrumbing is the subtle art of giving just enough attention to keep you interested, but never enough to satisfy you. It's the emotional equivalent of someone waving a glass of water in front of a thirsty traveler, and the moment you take a sip, they pull it back with a smile. But here's where it gets interesting. You might think breadcrumbing is just casual flirting, or indecision, or modern dating chaos. It's not. It's psychological conditioning. And the longer you tolerate it, the more you train your own brain to crave uncertainty. Let's break it down. When a woman breadcrumbs, she creates a pattern of unpredictable rewards. This taps directly into the same psychological mechanism that makes people addicted to slot machines. You don't know when the next text will come, when the next compliment will drop, or when she'll suddenly disappear for weeks, only to reappear with, "Hey stranger?" Your dopamine levels spike every time she reappears. It's not the attention itself that hooks you, it's the anticipation of it. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. Stoics call it a trap for the untrained mind. Now, here's the harsh truth. When you tolerate breadcrumbing, you don't just allow manipulation, you participate in your own emotional imprisonment. You become addicted to confusion. You start making excuses for her silence. You rewrite your own boundaries to fit her inconsistency. You call it patience, but in reality, it's emotional self-abandonment disguised as virtue. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." But breadcrumbing turns that freedom into a leash. A golden leash, perhaps, because it glitters with the illusion of potential. You might even tell yourself she's just busy or shy or afraid of commitment. But look closer. She always seems to find time for others. She just doesn't prioritize you. And that's the first psychological hit. When you tolerate breadcrumbs, you subconsciously accept the role of a backup option. You become the emotional vending machine she visits when she's bored, lonely, or needs validation. Here's what happens next. You start to internalize scarcity. You begin to believe that small doses of affection are all you deserve. You start chasing what used to come naturally, her attention, and every time you almost give up, she drops another crumb, just enough to reset your hope. It's not a relationship, it's a performance. And you're the only one who doesn't realize you're playing the role of the loyal extra. Now, let's zoom out. Why would someone breadcrumb in the first place? Sometimes it's insecurity. A woman who needs constant validation might keep multiple admirers orbiting around her. You're not chosen, you're collected. Other times, it's power. By controlling your emotional highs and lows, she controls your perception of value. And here's the paradox. The more uncertain you feel, the more value you assign to her. In Stoic terms, this is the failure to govern your own impressions. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from events themselves, but from the meaning we attach to them. You're not hurt by her silence, you're hurt by what you think her silence means. Breadcrumbing thrives in that gap between expectation and reality. It feeds on ambiguity. You wait, you wonder, you worry, you hope. And every unanswered message becomes an emotional riddle you desperately try to solve. The more you tolerate it, the more you lose yourself. You start editing your messages, lowering your standards, pretending you're fine with casual. You even convince yourself that emotional minimalism is maturity. But real maturity isn't about pretending not to care. It's about knowing when to stop caring. A Stoic man doesn't chase validation. He embodies self-respect. He doesn't wait for affection. He radiates calm confidence. He doesn't decode mixed signals. He values clarity more than attention. When you tolerate breadcrumbing, you give away your most valuable currency, your emotional energy. And the problem isn't that she's manipulative. It's that you've stopped practicing discernment. Think of discernment as emotional intelligence with boundaries. It's the ability to recognize when someone's effort doesn't match their words. The more you tolerate crumbs, the more invisible you become. She learns that you'll always be there, no matter how little she gives. And once she knows that, she doesn't respect you, she manages you. She'll send that miss you text right when she senses you pulling away. It's not love, it's control. Because breadcrumbing is not about attraction, it's about leverage. Let's talk about the silent consequences. Breadcrumbing doesn't just waste your time, it reshapes your self-image. Over time, you begin to mirror her inconsistency. You reply late. You lose confidence. You stop showing up as your authentic self. You become emotionally defensive, afraid to express needs because you fear losing the little you get. That's the slow erosion of masculine stability. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." When you tolerate breadcrumbing, you surrender that power. You give an inconsistent person control over your peace. And here's the painful irony. The moment you finally set boundaries, the breadcrumber suddenly becomes more interested. That's because boundaries threaten their control. They'll act confused, they'll promise change, they'll even drop a bigger breadcrumb. A date, a confession, a late-night call. But it's still the same pattern, dressed in temporary intensity. Don't mistake attention spikes for emotional growth. Every time you re-engage, you reinforce the behavior. The only real way out is detachment, not as revenge, but as restoration. Detachment is not coldness, it's clarity. When you detach, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop chasing, explaining, or proving. You realize that genuine connection doesn't require breadcrumbs, it requires consistency. The Stoics had a word for this state, ataraxia. It means unshakable calm. Imagine being so centered that no delayed text, no mixed signal, no temporary silence can disrupt your peace. You become the mountain. Steady, unbothered, grounded. And that's the power breadcrumbing fears the most, because breadcrumbing only works on those who crave external validation. Once you no longer chase crumbs, the breadcrumber starves. Their game collapses. Let's zoom in again. Why do so many men tolerate breadcrumbing? Because modern dating has confused scarcity with value. The harder someone is to get, the more we assume they're worth chasing. But the Stoics would laugh at that logic. They'd say, if she withholds peace, she's not rare, she's chaotic. Real value doesn't hide, it reveals. When you tolerate breadcrumbing, you're not being patient, you're avoiding self-confrontation. You'd rather chase uncertainty than face your fear of being alone. But solitude is not loneliness. Solitude is where clarity is born. It's where you rebuild your sense of worth without needing someone's inconsistent approval to prove it. Once you find peace in your own presence, breadcrumbing stops looking mysterious. It starts looking pathetic. You begin to see the patterns, the good morning text that never leads to plans, the miss you message that fades when you suggest meeting, the you're special compliment followed by days of silence. Each crumb becomes obvious, an echo of emotional manipulation dressed as affection. And the moment you stop reacting, something miraculous happens. Your energy returns, your confidence rebuilds. You realize that love isn't supposed to feel like waiting for a miracle, it's supposed to feel like peace. Now let's get brutally honest. Breadcrumbing doesn't just reveal her behavior, it exposes your boundaries. If you keep entertaining inconsistency, it means part of you believes that's all you deserve. But the Stoics would remind you, no one can dishonor you without your permission. So stop giving permission to confusion. Detach, observe, and act. The breadcrumber thrives on your reaction. So the ultimate revenge isn't confrontation, it's indifference. When you stop feeding the game ends. She might test your resolve. She might reappear with nostalgia, memories, or charm. But by then, you've evolved past the need for crumbs. You're sitting at your own table with your own piece, and she's left holding the empty plate. That's what happens when you stop tolerating breadcrumbing. And that's what happens when you finally remember you were never meant to beg for attention when you were born to embody value.